Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now in today's tutorial, we are going to be building a sleek and modern car dealership landing page using React and Tailwind CSS. We are going to be adding background images, animated hero section, smooth transitions, and a clean call to action button. We add some cool frame motion animations to bring the text and buttons to life. Whether you are a beginner or looking to level up your front-end skills, this is a perfect project to follow along. So let's dive into it.
So I already have React and Tailwind CSS set up. So we can just dive into creating this landing page. So first of all, I'm going to run this application. Down here, I'm going to say npm run dev. I'm going to follow this at localhost 3000. Then it's going to open up this application right here. You can see this text right here. Hello everyone. And the first thing we are going to do, we are going to create a component folder for our component. So in this SRC folder, I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to call this folder components. Now inside this component folder, I'm going to create two components. First of all, I'm going to create a navbar component. Navbar.csx rfc, and this is just going to return navbar. Then I'm going to create another component called hero.css. This is going to be our hero section. rfc. Then in my app.css file, just import those two components right here. Navbar and the hero. Sorry. Now returning back to the web page, you can see we have that navbar component right here, and we have that hero component underneath that navbar component. Now next, I'm going to add my background image. Now the image I'm going to be using is going to be inside this assets folder, and inside this image folder, we're going to have three images: image 1, image 2, and image 3. And these are the images we are going to be making use for our background image. First off, I'm going to add one image as the background image, and later on in the tutorial, we're going to implement that slide functionality. Just close this up. So inside my hero section, get rid of this div. Then I'll create a section here. First of all, add a CSS tag to this. I'm going to take a background image of URL. Now we have to import an image. We are going to make use of our background image. So up here, I'm going to import. I'll call this image 1 from assets images, then image1.jpg. Then down here, I'll just call that image 1 image 1. And after that, I'll give this a background size of cover, then the background position of center. Now that we have added our background image, I'm going to give this a class name of HScreen. Now this is going to give our hero section container a height of 100 VH. Save that. Then when we return back to our web page, you can see our background image in the web page. So the next thing we are going to do now, we're going to add a little blue overlay on this background image. So inside this section, I'm going to create a div. So I'll give you the class name of absolute. Insert 0 bg blue. I want the overlay to be bg blue of 950. Then I want it to have an opacity of 30. That's going to be an opacity of about 30%. Yeah. Lastly, since this div is going to have a position of absolute, I'm going to give its parent container a position of relative. Now let's check out the output. And we can see we have our background image right here. So next, let's start working on styling the navigation bar. So I'm going to head over to the navbar component. I'll get rid of this right here. Then I'm going to create a nav tag. And this navigation bar is going to be fixed at the top of the web page. So I'm going to give it a position of fixed. A top of 0. I want it to be fixed at the top of the web page. And I want it to have a width of 100%, which is going to be widthful, which is going to give it a width of 100%. Now inside this navbar, we're going to have two items. We're going to have, first of all, our logo and our navigation links. So first of all, the logo is going to be wide nation. Then after that, we're going to have our navigation links, which is going to be a UL tag with a bunch of li tags in it. Now each of these li tags is going to have an anchor tag, which is not going to lead anywhere. Then for the first one, is going to be home. Then the second link is going to be explore. Then the third link is going to be about. Then the last link is going to be contacts. Save that and return back to the web page, and we cannot see our navigation bar. So we have to actually give this a z-index property. So I'm going to give this a z-index of 10. And yeah, we can see them right here at the top left corner of the web page. So next, we want to give this a display of flex and add a horizontal padding to this navigation bar. So I'm going to give this a display of flex, then items of center, then justify between, then I'm going to give it a height of 20, then a padding horizontal of 34. So I'm going to give this a text of white so I can see the items properly. Yeah. So next, I'm going to style up this logo. So first of all, I'm going to give this logo a class name of text3xl and a font of semi-bold. Way better. Now let's style up this link. So inside this UL tag, I'm going to add a class name that's going to be flex and item center, font of semi-bold. It's going to have a space x of 6. To add space between the link items. Yeah, that's really, really good. So next, we have to start styling the individual links. So I'm going to style this first link first, and I'll copy the styles and paste on the other links. I'm going to give this a padding horizontal of 7 and a padding vertical of 3. Then on hover of this link, I want it to have a BG of white. Then on hover, I want it to have a text of black. Yeah, you can see that little cover effect right here. So let's add the border radius to this link and also add a transition to this. So first of all, I'm going to say transition colors, then duration. I just use 500. Then I'm going to give this a rounded of full border radius. Just close this up. Yeah, that's very, very, very good. Now just copy these styles and paste on the other links. And this is actually supposed to be on the anchor tag, not the li tag. So I just cut that off. It's supposed to be in the anchor tag. I'll paste here. Paste here. Paste here. And we can see them looking really good. Now for this one, I want this to have this kind of background color right here. I want it to have a background color of white. So I'm going to head to that last link. Then I'll just take out this hover property. Then take out this hover property. Then save that. And yeah. Now with that, I'm basically done with the navigation bar. So we can start working on the hero section. So inside the hero section, I'm going to create a div. And this div is going to house our p tag and our anchor tag. So first, the p tag is going to be drive in style. It's going to house our anchor tag, which is not going to lead anywhere. First of all, this anchor tag is going to have a span. That's going to say explore features. Then it's going to have an icon. So we have to install React icon. So in this terminal, I'm just going to open this up. New terminal. Then I'll type npm install React icons. Now I already have React icons in my project, but if you don't have React icons in your project yet, just type in this command npm install React icons there. Click on enter. It's going to install React icons in your project. So we're going to take rid of this. So I'll create a span. Then inside this span, we're going to make use of an icon called far arrow right from front awesome. Right now you can see that the content of our hero section is at the top left corner right here. So let's actually try to position it at the center. So to do that, I want to give this container, this parent container, a display of flex, then items of center. Save that. Now you can see that they are positioned right here. Then lastly, I'm going to add the same padding added to the navigation, but we're going to be padding horizontal of 34. And you can see them right here at the center of the web page right here. So let's tie them up. First of all, the div that is actually covering both of them, I'm going to give it a z index of 10. Now this is because of this overlay we added right here, this absolute overlay, so it does not cover the elements of our web page. So we're going to give them a z index of 10. Then I'm going to give this a display of grid and a gap of 15. Now let's start styling them up. So first of all, I want to style up the p tag. I'm going to give those p tag a class name of text 7xl and a text of white and font of bold. Now that looks really good. Now next, let's style up this link. So first of all, I'm going to give this anchor tag a class name of bg white, inline flex, then a justifier of center, items of center, a padding of 2 and a rounded of full. That's full border radius. Alright, that looks better, but I'm going to wrap this link inside a div so that grid display doesn't affect it. So I'm going to wrap it inside a div and just paste that right here. Yeah, that way the link is still going to be an inline level element. So next we have to style the items inside the link. So first of all, I'm going to give them a gap property. I'm going to give them a gap of 10 to add margin between both of them. Then for this one, I'm going to give it a class name of text XL and a font of semi-bold. Save that. Yeah, that's actually way better, but I want to add like a padding to this explore feature. So I just add a padding left to it. So say padding left of 4. Yeah, that's way better. I prefer it this way. So next you have to start styling this icon right here. So first of all, I'm going to give this span that houses the icon a bg of teal 600, a padding of 4 and a text of white. That's looking better, but we have to add a border radius to this. So I'm going to give this a rounded of full. Now this is way better. Now the next thing we are going to do is style up that little dot that is going to be indicating our active slide. So to do that, I'm going to create a div tag underneath this. Underneath this div that houses our anchor tag, we'll create another div. I just give, first of all, I want it to have a margin top of 12, a display of flex, and a gap of 2. Now inside this div, I'll create a span tag. I'm actually going to have 3 span tags, so I'm just going to copy that down. So I'll style this first span tag, then I'll just copy the class and paste on the other span tags. This is going to have a width of 3, a height of 3, a rounded of full, a cursor of pointer, a background of bg gray 400, and on hover of this span, I want it to have a bg of white. Then I'll just copy that class and paste on the other span tags. Paste here, save that. And we can see our little indicators right here. So next we are going to start working on the slide. So to do that, we have to import the other images. So first of all, I'm going to import the image 2. Import image 2. Then I'm also going to import image 3. Now we're going to be outputting our image and our p tag dynamically, which means we have to create an array of objects that we're going to be mapping through. So up here, I'm going to create an object. I'm going to call this object const hero data. It's going to be an array of objects. And the first object is going to take a text. Now this text is going to be upgrade your journey.
And each object is going to take an image. And in this case, it's going to be image 1. I'll just copy and drag that down. This one is going to be drive in style. Drive in style. Then we're going to make use of image 2. I'm going to copy that down again. Then the last test is going to be discover performance. Then the image is going to be image 3. Alright, cool. Now let me explain what I'm doing here. Now any array you create in JavaScript is always going to have an index number. Right now, this first object is an index of 0. The second object is an index of 1. While the third object is an index of 2. Because computer starts counting from 0. So if we want to display the data of the first object, all we have to do is call this hero data, then pass in the index of 0. It's going to display this one for us. Same thing if we want to display the next object, we're going to make use of its index number, which is 1. And for this one, we're going to make use of the index number, which is going to be 2. So to access their index, we're going to create a state called slide index. So inside this function, I'll create a state const slide index, then set slide index is equals to the useState hook from React. And by default, this is going to be index 0. Now what I'm doing is I'm creating a state in React. Now to create a state in React, we make use of the useState hook. Now this slide index is the variable that's actually equal to this 0 right now. While this set slide index is the function we are going to use to actually update the states. Now to demonstrate this, I'm going to get rid of this image 1. Then I'm going to say hero data. I want the one at the index of 0 dot the image. Save that, and when we return back to our web page, you can see that we still have our image 1 background. When we refresh, we still have our image 1 background. Now when I change the index to maybe 1, it's going to show the next image. When I change this to 2, it's going to show the next image. And that's how we are going to work on this slide. We are going to be using the index number of these objects. So instead of hard coding the index number here, I'm just going to pass in the slide index. That's this state we created up here. Returning back to the web page, consider this is an index of 0. So anytime we modify this state, if I change this to index of 2, the slide is going to be updated. So what we are going to work on next is that when someone clicks any of these indicators, it's going to set the slides to that indicator. For example, now if you click on this indicator, it's going to set it to index of 0. If you click on the second one, it's going to set it to an index of 1. And when you click on this one, it's going to set it to an index of 2. Now to do that, first of all, I have to map through this hero data array right here. So I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to map through it. First of all, I'll get rid of 2 of this span tag. I just need 1 of this span tag. Then I'm going to say hero data.map. Then I want to call each of the item a data. Then I'm going to get the index number. Then I want to return this span tag right here. I just copy this, or just cut it and paste that right here. Now I have to specify the key because the key is very important. That's how React is going to keep track of the items in the list. So key is going to be the index number of the items. And after that, I'm going to add the dynamic style to this. So I'm just going to cut this off for now. Then I'm going to use backticks, paste that in here. Then inside this style, I can add the dynamic style. I can say if the index that I'm mapping through is equivalent to the slide index, because I want to actually show an indicator of which slide is actually active. So if that index equals to slide index, I want to give it a style of BG till of 600. Save that. Now we'll go back to the web page. You can see right now we have the first one as our active slide. So if we change the slide index to 1, this one is going to be the active slide index. If I change this to 2, this one is going to be the active slide index. So let's do that. Instead of changing the index manually in the states, I'm just going to add an onClick event handler here. I'm going to say onClick. Now on click of this indicator, I want to run an arrow function that's going to fire this set slide index function. And I want to set the slide index to the index I clicked on. I want to save that. Now when I return back to the web page, when I click on this, it's going to set it to that index. When I click on this, it's going to set this to that index, and we can see our images slides are actually working. Now the next thing we are going to implement is that we want this to be able to auto slide. When we are not clicking on it, we want it to slide on its own every 5 seconds. So I'm going to come back up here. I'm going to create a function underneath this state. I'm going to call this function const next slide. Equals to an arrow function. First of all, I have to check if the slide index is less than hero data dot length minus 1. And if that is true, I want to set the slide index. I'm going to get the previous index, and I'll say previous index plus 1. I'll show the next slide. S, I want to set the slide index back to 0. Now let me explain what this function is actually doing. Now for example, now if I'm in the first slide, which means the index is at 0, the slide index is 0. So if the slide index is at 0, which means I'm in the first slide, so when I go to the next slide, I'm going to be at a slide index of 1. So when I go to the next slide, I'm not in a slide index of 2. I'm at the last slide. At that point, there is no next slide. So I want to restart the loop. I want to go back to index of 0. So I have to check if the slide index is less than hero data dot length. Now the reason I added -1 is that hero data dot length is going to give me 3. If I use the 3 I'm getting from this hero data dot length like that, if I'm at a slide index of 2, which means I'm at the last index, it's still going to set my index to +1, which is going to be 3. Now at that point up here, you can notice now this one is an index of 0, this one is an index of 1, this one is an index of 2. After index of 2, I don't have any other image to display to the slide. So to solve this problem, I'm going to say hero data dot length minus 1, which means at this point, we're going to have 2 here. So anytime our slide index is less than 2, it's going to add 1 to the slide and set it to the next slide. So now, anytime our slide index equals 2, which means we're at the last slide, if this slide index equals the 2 we are returning from here, which means we are at the last slide, which means this code is not going to run, then it's going to set our slide index to 0. It's going to reset our loop. Now that we have this function, how do we fire this function? Because we cannot hook this up to a button. We want this to be automatic. Now to do this, we are going to make use of side effects in React. Now to do side effects in React, we make use of the use effect hook. So I'm going to create a use effect hook right here. So inside this use effect hook, I'm going to create an interval. I'm going to say set interval every 5,000 milliseconds, which is basically 5 seconds. Now, which function do I want to fire every 5 seconds? The next slide function. That's this function we created up here. Now we are not done. When you are using set interval or maybe adding event listeners inside your use effect hook, you have to actually clean up the use effect hook from when the component amount. So I want to set this to a variable. I'm going to say const interval is equals to set interval. Then down here, I'm going to say return function clear. I'm going to pass in the interval variable there. And this is going to clean up when the component amounts. And lastly, we have to pass this next slide to this use effect hook as a dependency array. I'm going to paste that in here. Now let's refresh the web page and see if our slide is actually working. Now, after 5 seconds, it's going to go to the next slide. After 5 seconds again, it's going to go to the next slide. Now let's see if the loop is going to restart. And it's going to restart the loop. So our auto slide is working perfectly. And the last thing we're going to implement now is that little cool animation with Freeman Motion. So we have to install Freeman Motion. So down here, I'm going to open up our terminal. npm install Freeman Motion. Now we have Freeman Motion installed. So I'm going to close this up. Up here, I'm going to import animate presence from Framer Motion. I also want to import motion from Framer Motion. Then I'm going to scroll down, actually implement this animation. So I want to add the animation to this p tag and this link right here. So first of all, let me work on this p tag. So I'm going to create an animate presence tag here. So animate presence. Now I'm going to just copy this p tag, then I'm going to paste that in here. Then instead of p, it's going to be motion.p. Now just copy that. And instead of p here, I'm going to say motion.p. First of all, we have to pass in the animation key. Now, since this is a text, I'm going to say equal data. Then at index, I'm going to pass in a slide index. So anytime this slide index change, it's going to animate again dot the text. And this is going to be the key for this one, the unique key. Then the initial position is going to be opacity of 0, y of 30. That's 13 pixels from the original position. Then down here, I'm going to say animate to an opacity of 1 and a y of 0. That's animate towards the original position. Then for the exits, I'm going to say animate back to an opacity of 0, then a y of negative 30. All right. Then lastly, we have to pass in the transition. The transition is going to be duration 0.6. Then for the link, I'm going to create another animate presence tag. Animate presence. Then I'll just copy this div that's wrapping up the link, cut that off, paste that here. Now instead of div, I'm going to say motion dot the div. Then down here to motion dot the div. Then for the properties of the animation, I'll just copy the properties of this one up here. The only thing that's going to be different is the key. I'm going to add a little delay on it. So now for this one, I'm just going to make use of the slide index as the key. Slide index. All right. Then this one I have to add a little delay to it because I want it to be animate after the text animates. I want to add a little delay to it. The delay of 0.2. Save that. Now when we return back to the web page, refresh, and you can see my animation. Then it's actually glitchy. The reason why it's glitchy is because the animation is not waiting for the previous animation to complete before the next one starts. So we are going to add like a mode. So I'll say mode, then I'll say wait. Then I'll just copy that and paste on the other animate presence mode wait. Refresh the web page. Then click on the next one. You're going to notice that a little smooth animation. It's very, very smooth animation. Now that we have added our animation, the only thing left to do is basically to add this text dynamically. So I'm just going to head back to our project. Now instead of hard coding this text here, I'm just going to get rid of this. Then I'm going to say hero data, then the slide index dot text. I'm going to save that. And yeah, you can see the text right here. When I go back to the first slide index, we're going to see the first one, upgrade your journey. Then when I click on the next one, it's going to say driving style. When I click on the next one, it's going to say discover performance. And that's it for this tutorial. Now, if you enjoyed this tutorial, smash on the like button and leave a random comment below. It's going to help the YouTube algorithm push this content to more people who are going to find it helpful. And also, it's actually going to mean a lot to me if you smash on that like button because it's actually going to help the channel a lot. And lastly, if you've not subscribed, ensure you do that and turn on your notification bell so you don't miss out on tutorials like this. I'll see you in the next video.